Hello everybody, Dave Neal here, and we've got the information we've been waiting for. Matt James on a podcast talking about his relationship with Rachael Kirkconnell, how they broke up during the season as it was airing, and where they stand. So let's get right into it. Matt James was on Anthony Pompliano's podcast, The Pomp. I couldn't believe how candid he was when I was listening to this. I've got time code after time code of amazing clips to share with you, but I think I'm just going to share one or two clips with you and just get this out to you because it's really fascinating. The question was asked, did Rachael want to win? What I love about Anthony Pompliano is he doesn't watch the show, so he doesn't take anything for granted. He asks a bunch of what might be obvious questions, but he gets Matt James to open up in a way that I don't think he would open up with someone on a Bachelor produced podcast. I love the fact that this isn't necessarily Bachelor affiliated, but he breaks down the details and answers so many questions that we've had. Let's take a look at this clip right here.
So as you guys are finishing the show, you finally let everybody else know what you've known for a little bit, right? Is Rachael's going to be the winner,
right?
Is she happy about that? Like, did she want to win?
By
the way, we're having this conversation. She's in the room,
yeah,
so
Rachael's
I'm gonna put you on the spot. Rachel, shout out. Just I'll get some answers for you.
Shout
Go
out
ahead.
to Rachael. I've never done an interview with her right here before, so this will be interesting.
Even better. All right, perfect.
I think she was excited. You know, I was definitely excited because we've had to.
I'm just laughing at the fact that you're like, I think she was excited.
Like, because
can you feel the heat of her just staring at us?
Yeah,
right,
I'm getting a burn right here.
We'll get that over. Go ahead.
Because we there's so much of our relationship that we want to celebrate and share with everybody, and we've had to hide and be in hiding because we don't want to ruin this experience as it's airing for everybody else. So we're, again, walking on eggshells so that we're not giving things away, but I'm constantly doing bonehead stuff to like give it away. Like I was listening to one of her playlists on Spotify.
And people figured it out?
Dude, people figure out everything.
Wait, hold on. All right, so let's set the context. The show ends, right? You've picked Rachael. Rachel's the winner. You guys like get released to the wild, essentially, right? Like back into society.
Right.
And you're told in November, you said that nobody can see you together until March.
Right.
Okay. What happens for 4 or 5 months, right? You're so excited, all this stuff. What do you do for 5 months?
Well,
other than listen to her playlist on Spotify.
That's
like the old CDs. Remember, when, like in middle school, a girl would like write on it and give you the CD.
If you really like somebody, you would burn a CD for them, right?
Yeah, facts.
They had a playlist for them. But I think me and Rachel's relationship was a little bit different because a lot of things happened. You know, like we would. From a standpoint of like what we did together, like we couldn't leave the house. So like you're limited to, we watched a bunch of movies. We worked our way through Disney Plus. Like Rachel's the biggest Marvel fan there is. So like she's giving me like a high level graduate education on the history of all these different characters, and I'm trying to catch up.
It's basically like Bachelor for kids, you know, to some degree, right? Like different players got different skills.
Yeah, no, that was a lot of fun though. We got to do things like that. You know, if we had the opportunity to do things outdoors, we probably wouldn't have spent as much time doing. And then there was like rough patches on our relationship. You know, like we actually broke up for a moment while the show was airing, and then after the show aired and the finale happened, we found ourselves we're back together now. So.
When you break up, is that like what a normal person would think of as a breakup, or now that everyone in the world watches, is it like something different? Like going back to like, is like you're still a human, right? So is she, I think. And so like when you guys like have good or bad times, like it's the same thing in any relationship that you had before the show.
Right.
All right. When you guys get back together, is that like a 2 a.m. you up text that like a normal person would send when they're drunk? Or is that like a, hey, you know, we saw each other somewhere for an event? Like, how does that happen?
Well, I think it's an interesting question because there was...
If you tell me you up text right now, I'm going to die.
Definitely not a you up text. It was honestly a commitment that we had made to each other that we were going to work on the relationship. And there came a point in time where it was evident that my working on the relationship looked different than Rachel's because I wasn't really honoring that commitment that I made to working on our relationship. And it was just a come to Jesus meeting that I had with Rachel, where she's like, if you're gonna make this work, then like let's do it. But if you're not gonna make it work, then I'm gonna let you do your own thing. And that's really all I needed.
Is that an ultimatum?
It was an ultimatum that I needed because I was
it was appreciated,
right.
but it was hey, let me put my foot down.
Exactly. But
All
it's
right, my wife's in the room too. She does that all the time. But like not over like, hey, the relationship, like you better take the trash out, or
Yeah, no. It was what I needed, and it's been great.
What's up, guys?
Amazing. Very fascinating. I know I say that a lot. This is so interesting. A lot of people hypothesized, probably wrongly so, that they never broke up, that it was all a ploy for the cameras. As we saw in the After the Final Rose episode, there was hardship. There was hearts being tugged in different direction. Obviously, Matt James had the weight of the world on his shoulder. He had a lot of people, a lot of voices, a lot of criticism, a lot of things happening to an otherwise a person who spent their whole life living in anonymity. And at the same time, you had Rachael Kirkconnell, who had a different set of problems she was dealing with, overcoming a lot of her own issues, doing the work, as we've said over and over, doing the work. And very fascinating that after that breakup, Matt James, through whatever reason, had to look himself in the mirror and say, I'm not honoring the commitment I made to do better, to work on things. And that's so important. I don't think I think he had mentioned he had never been in love before. He'd never been in a relationship. It's hard to understand how you react with the adversity of a situation where you're at a crossroads, where you got to deal with the ego of an athlete, the ego of a competitor, a winner, someone like Matt, who's been hyper competitive his whole life. And all of a sudden it's a situation where we say this line all the time, you're not going to bench press your way out of it. You're not going to solve it through sheer muscle, but solve it through compassion. And that's something we all have to learn. That just because you have the ability to walk away from a relationship, just because you have maybe you're right, maybe you have pride, just because you have all those things, that doesn't mean that that's the right choice to make. And the choice that you make will be the one that defines the next steps. And for him to catch himself, for him to understand, like he says, there was a come to Jesus meeting that they had where he had to say, is this something worth fighting for? Is this something I'm going to commit to and fight for? Or is it something that I'm going to quit on and realize it's too damaged? And everybody who watched this play out said they don't stand a chance. How happy are we to see that they're working this out? He said it was the ultimatum I needed. They broke up for a moment. And very funny, too, to hear that the Spotify playlist spoiler was true, because he's not lying when he says that people find out everything. He's looking to, and we were thinking like, oh, he's listening to Rachael Kirkconnell's Spotify playlist. Clearly, it's not that obvious. Clearly, that's not the spoiler. But sure enough, you can find anything online. I mean, the modern world makes it very hard to not give away who you're with or hanging out with. And as he had mentioned, because they were like forced underground, they couldn't go out in a park together. There was a lot of Netflix and chilling happening. Probably a lot of, like they said, watching Disney Plus. Doesn't that sound amazing? What a great way to start a relationship, is just to canoodle with each other on the couch. But good for them that they can finally feel comfortable enough to share their story. Not that we deserve it. We truly don't. We don't deserve to know the ins and outs of what went down. But kudos to this guy, Anthony Pompliano. I don't know him. I'll have to check out his podcast. It's a great interview. I love this type. I love the interjecting, the fun. While it might sound, sometimes people get turned off by the interjecting, but I think it creates a conversation that allows for more opening up to happen. It's like, oh, yeah, tell you about my wife. You tell me about yours, how we act, the different things to relating. I think I think he just nailed it. Why don't we do this? I'll play one more clip for you guys. And then I'd love to hear your comments. Leave a comment and let me know what you guys think about how this is coming off. I mean, look, if you're not rooting for Matt James right now, if you're not rooting for Rachael and Matt to just keep on fighting and working, and I know what a lot of people say. They go, married couples say, well, relationships work. It's a lot of hard work. It's not hard work like you're building a brick wall and it's arduous and it's backbreaking. It's hard work in the sense that you have to get out of your comfort zone. You have to get out of your preconceived way of thinking. You have to understand someone receives love different than you. You have to understand that you give love in different ways than they give it to you. And you have to just have boatloads of empathy, boatloads of room for grace. And that's something that while they might have missed it in a moment, they were so lucky to recapture that. I think that's just fantastic for them. I'll play a quick moment, quick clip here. This takes us all the way back to when Matt James found out he was going to be the Bachelor. Of course, he was living in the quarantine house with Tyler Cameron and Hannah Brown. And let's hear what he has to say about that.
Is it like a celebratory thing?
You know what's funny? So like at that time in the house that I was quarantining in, like it was the peak of prank wars. Like we were at each other's necks. There's 10 people living in like a 2-bedroom house. And so I thought it was a joke. Like I thought someone was messing with me because it's an area code I've never seen.
Yep.
It's someone I had never spoken to. So I get this call. And I'm just like, who paid this person to call me? You know, I'm just like on edge. And then they called back the next day and I was like, oh shit, this is real. And I was honored, you know, because I know the type of research and the type of I just know how difficult it is to be in that pool of people that they're considering, and what an honor it would be to be the first Black person to do that. So yeah, it was surreal. It was surreal.
All right, so you get there, you meet all these girls. What's going through your head? Like that, like to me, it's just like there's this element of wow, all these girls are here for me, right? So like there's probably like I'm the man, right? At the same time, you're like, oh, but it's gonna be on national television, like that throws a wrench in things. Like I'm gonna have to be careful as to like what I say, do whatever, because everything's filmed, right? And then you like get into it, and is it literally as emotional? And for those that are listening, I've never watched this show before, but I saw Matt beforehand. My wife is a 20-year veteran, I think, of the show, and so I started watching because we've got some friends that are mutual friends, and it's like sports, man. Like literally, like you could cheer on one girl over another girl or whatever, right? And you're like, you get into it. And so like, is that the same thing for you on the other side of it?
You know, it's different for me, you know, because these are real relationships I'm dealing with.
Are they real? Come on. Are they really real?
They're real for me. And I think that's why it worked for me, because when, like to your point, there's people who have bachelor pools and they're doing all this stuff like, oh, we wonder, and that's fun and it gets people engaged, but for it to work and for it to be real and for those connections to be valid, you got to be vulnerable. And that's not something that I was ever comfortable with being or doing, just because like I was conditioned as a man just to keep all that stuff inside and not share. Like my friend group didn't talk about stuff like that. And so when I'm like forced to address these things that I've never talked about or come to terms with these women, you just form this connection and bond over sharing things with people you've never shared before, and also being disconnected from work, email, phone. Like you don't have any electronics. Like it's just you and these women out there trying to figure out if you're compatible with one another.
So it's weird if like a friend called me up and he started saying all kinds of emotional stuff, you'd almost be like, you good? Right? Like,
well, now I'm like, yo, I welcome those conversations.
Yeah.
It's funny, after the experience, like you find yourself just like trying to have these like deep conversations. So it's like, if you a common question you get is, so how are you feeling, Pomp? Like, I feel good. Like if you ask me how I'm feeling, man, let me tell you, like it's been a tough day. Like I've had this going on, and I think
you're more honest.
Yeah, you just dive deeper and you look to have those type of connections and conversations. So after the show, I'm like having these conversations with people, and they're just like, yo, like, are you good? I'm just like, no, I just want to know. Like it's because it feels good to get those things off your chest and share.
Yeah.
So.
All right, folks, there it is. I mean, just a slice of life. Like you only see the stoicism. You know, you see the guard up, and you see someone, and you go, oh, he doesn't care about Rachael. He's only in it for this. He's only in it for that. I mean, it doesn't take, you know, do you feel foolish? Do you feel stupid? Taking the bait from what Bachelor producers shovel down your throat, that slop we all ate. Do you feel dumb? Do you feel like maybe you jumped the gun on your impression of who this man is? Complicated. Conditioned, growing up, don't share your emotions, bottle it down, toxic optimism, everything's fine. Now the guy's like, all right, let's open up, let's share. This is growth, folks. This is good to see. It's good to know that like we're all on a different path. We all get there at a different time in our life, and this was quite the catalyst for him. Whether it works out with Rachael or not, I think they've gotten so many tools of communication from this experience, and I'm so glad to see that they had the come to Jesus moment. I'm so glad to see he's looking at himself in the mirror, asking hard questions, demanding better from himself. I wish you guys all the same. Leave a comment. Let me know what you guys think. Check out the Patreon. I got a brand new video that's up. If you want to check out the Patreon, it's over there on my Patreon channel. Link below, mailing list, Discord, all that jazz. I'll be making more clips from this podcast video. Fascinating stuff, folks. See you next time. Bye now.